Hi, everyone. Just want to let you know that we're still waiting on some people to join us this evening. We had about 40 some people register previously, and we have about 11 who have joined us. So we're just going to give it a couple more minutes until we get some more participants. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Friends Connection and happy first day of spring. I'm Donna Gibson, Friends Executive Director. Tonight I am joined by subject matter experts who will walk us through the Resiliency Project and the work being done to rehabilitate the 40 memorial groves at Flight 93 National Memorial. I am honored to introduce our three distinguished guests from the National Park Service who bring a wealth of knowledge and expertise to our discussion about the rehabilitation of the memorial groves. Please join me in welcoming Kristina Melgar, Acting Deputy Superintendent, the National Parks of Western Pennsylvania, Colleen Curry, the Chief of Resource Management for the National Parks of Western Pennsylvania, and James Mealey, Landscape Architect, Olmsted Center for Landscape Preservation. We are thrilled to have our partners here to share insights into the critical work being done to preserve and protect the memorial groves. Their expertise will provide us with a deeper understanding of the challenges and the opportunities in managing these precious resources. Please enter any questions that you may have related to this topic into the chat, and we will answer your questions at the end of the session. So let's dive into this conversation and explore the incredible efforts underway at Flight 93. I will start with Kristina Melgar, Acting Superintendent of the National Parks of Western Pennsylvania. Welcome, Kristina.
Hi, Donna. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am, as Donna said, Kristina Melgar, the current Acting Deputy Superintendent for the Western Pennsylvania National Parks, specifically what we're here for, Flight 93. So we're all here today to talk about the Resiliency Project, which I will leave to Colleen and James as the subject matter experts. But at Flight 93, we have 40 groves. And when Paul Murdoch had designed the memorial, the groves were to represent the 40 passengers and crews, which we like to refer to as the heroes, in the memorial. However, the groves did not grow the way that we wanted to, hence the name, the Resiliency Project, because we are not going to give up on them. We've partnered with, we have the friends and many different folks that are trying to help this become a success. So when you look at the groves are there, and what they're meant to do is represent on a large scale the sacrifice that these 40 heroes made that day on 11 September 2001, which was the ultimate sacrifice. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Colleen Curry, who is our Chief of Resource Management, who will dive into exactly what is going to happen and what it all means. So, Colleen.
Thank you, Kristina. As Kristina said, I have the honor of serving as the Chief of Resource Management for the National Parks of Western Pennsylvania, which includes Flight 93. I'm going to provide some background into kind of what we do with resource management at the memorial and background on the memorial itself. And then James will really be diving into the nuts and bolts of the Resiliency Project and what that will entail. So resource management at these parks includes several disciplines and specialists kind of working together to preserve and protect the cultural and the natural resources for future generations. Cultural resources include archaeology, ethnography, museum collections, historic and prehistoric structures, and cultural landscapes, while natural resources include biological resources such as native plants, insects, animals, and then physical resources like water, air, soils, geology, dark skies, and natural soundscapes. So I want to provide you with some background on the memorial and its resources. As you all know, Flight 93 National Memorial honors the 40 heroes of United Airlines Flight 93. While the 33 passengers and 7 crew members were mostly from the United States, Citizens of Germany, Japan, New Zealand, and Puerto Rico were also on board. Flight 93 left Newark Airport bound for San Francisco that morning and was delayed about 30 minutes. So when the terrorists broke into the cockpit at 9:28 a.m., the passengers began making calls to family and friends and learned of the fate of the other planes. They realized quickly that this was not a regular hijacking and decided to take action. A total of 37 calls were made that morning. The 40 heroes fought back, and United Flight 93 crashed nose first at 10:03 a.m. in the fields of the former strip and deep mine. While the United States and the world mourned and reeled from the events of September 11, 2001, the FBI and other investigative units quickly took over the crash site. Investigators took over the buildings from the former strip and deep mine and the Rolock recycling facility, and then the families were brought there to that overlook, to overlook the crash site. So that area is now known as the Western Overlook. Here you can see in the photo on the right, the two drag lines from the former mining operation atop what is now known as Communications Hill. Steel from one of the drag lines was used to construct the keel of the USS Somerset, one of 3 9/11 tribute ships. The other two are the USS Arlington and the USS New York. A temporary memorial was erected and continued to grow as people from across the United States and the world wanted to pay their respects and honor the 40 heroes. Captain Stephen Ruda with the Los Angeles City Fire Department wrote his sentiments on a quilt. These words would become the preamble of Flight 93 National Memorial's mission statement: a common field one day, a field of honor forever. Almost 17,000 tribute objects from the first few years of that temporary memorial are preserved in Flight 93 National Memorial's museum collection. So how do we honor such heroes and remember their actions? Flight 93 National Memorial was created on September 24th, 2002 by President George W. Bush and Congress with a threefold purpose: honor the passengers and crew members of Flight 93 who courageously gave their lives, thereby thwarting a planned attack on our nation's capital; allow the public to visit the site and express their feelings about the event and the passengers and crew of Flight 93; and finally, preserve the open rural landscape and the solemn and tranquil setting of the crash site of Flight 93. An international design competition was determined to be the most inclusive, transparent, and democratic way to create a national memorial. The competition, overseen by multiple entities collectively known as the partners, included the families of Flight 93, the Flight 93 Memorial Task Force, the Flight 93 Advisory Commission, and the National Park Service. The partners hired professional design competition advisors, and the competition was conducted in 2 stages. Stage 1 received over 1,000 entries, and these were placed on display in Somerset and the project website, and the public was able to view and provide comments. The Stage 1 jury, comprised of 9 design professionals, family members, and national leaders, evaluated all Stage 1 entries against numerous criteria and recommended 5 Stage 1 finalists, who advanced to Stage 2 of the design competition. In Stage 2, the 5 finalists refined their design concepts, toured the site, and participated in a master plan workshop to explore the site's resource conditions, understand potential visitor experiences, and determine a range of actions that would be needed throughout the National Memorial site to support their design. The final 5 designs were exhibited in Somerset and the project website, and again, the public was able to comment. So here are images of the public viewing some of the Phase 1 submissions in Somerset. On September 7, 2005, the selected design was publicly announced. It was submitted by Paul Murdoch Architects of Los Angeles and Nelson Bird Waltz Landscape Architects of Charlottesville, Virginia. An extremely important part of the winning design was Flight 93 National Memorial as a living memorial and landscape to help heal the nation, but also the formerly mined land. This is one reason the memorial's landscape includes so many trees and why they are critical to the design intent. Here are design drawings that include, from top to right, the flight path at the Visitor Center and Learning Center complex, the alley with the Visitor Center in the background, the wetlands bridge that connects the alley with Memorial Plaza, and the Wall of Names. And we do have a lot of the documentation from these winning designs in the memorial's archives. Work began on Phase 1A of the memorial design in 2009, and that included the Memorial Plaza and Visitor Shelter, the Wall of Names, the ceremonial gate, which is made of hemlock, and the 17.5-ton sandstone boulder in the sacred ground. It was dedicated in time for the 10th anniversary observance on September 11th, 2011. Incorporated throughout the design are impressions of hemlock. The hemlock grove circles a portion of the crash site and is an important cultural resource. The Visitor Center, Learning Center, alley, and memorial groves were constructed between 2014 and 2015 and dedicated in 2016. The black granite flight path includes timestamps of the 3 flights that day before Flight 93. Etched in the flight path overlook, is Captain Ruta's statement. The final phase, phase 2, was partially completed in 2018. The Tower of Voices is one of the largest musical instruments in the world and serves as both a visual and audible reminder of the 40 heroes. It is 93 feet tall and has 40 chimes. The Tower of Voices was dedicated on September 9th, 2018, and the 40 chimes on September 10th, 2020. This phase was funded by the National Park Foundation and the Friends of Flight 93 National Memorial. Flight 93 National Memorial has been divided into landscape management zones to assist with preservation and management decisions. These zones were created with input from the memorial's designers, and James will discuss more of this in his presentation. Finally, resource management involves cultural and natural resources, as well as a museum program. We work across divisions to preserve and protect the memorial's important structures and design elements, especially the design landscape through the compliance process. This mandates us to look at the effects of all projects may have on the memorial's cultural and natural resources and allows us to mitigate potential adverse effects. This year, we will be conserving the Wall of Names, and that will entail cleaning the marble, checking the stability of the metal letters for each name, and replacing the white and black caulking throughout. For natural resources, we monitor and collect data on the various species residing at the memorial. We work with the U.S. Forest Service to combat the invasive hemlock woolly adelgid in the hemlock grove, and we work with partners to manage the trees that are integral to the memorial's design intent. Finally, the memorial's museum collection includes tangible reminders of the site, from its early mining operations to the brave actions of the 40 heroes and the tributes left by a grateful nation and world. The collection currently contains around 45,000 items, and the museum curator works across divisions to assist with research requests and visitor center exhibits. In closing, the Resource Management Division helps to ensure the cultural and natural resources of the memorial are documented, preserved, and made accessible for future generations. I'll now turn it over to James Mealey, landscape architect with the Olmsted Center for Landscape Preservation.
Thank you, Colleen. Hello, everybody. My name is James Mealey. I'm a landscape architect with the Olmsted Center for Landscape Preservation, which is a program of the National Park Service Northeast Regional Office that supports parks in this region with protecting and managing their cultural landscapes. Since 2019, the Olmsted Center has been collaborating with Flight 93 National Memorial staff and a constellation of other partners, including the Friends of Flight 93 and Pennsylvania State University, to develop a plan to improve conditions and ensure the long-term sustainable management of the Flight 93 National Memorial landscape, including the memorial groves and alley. Tonight, I'm going to provide an overview of these recent efforts as they relate to the memorial groves and alley, with particular focus on soil amendment work that was just completed this past fall. That successful soil work is just the beginning of a long-term initiative that the Park Service and its partners are embarking upon to revitalize the memorial groves in LA. And at the end of this presentation, I'll look ahead to next steps in that broader effort. But first, to take a step back, it's important as we talk about trees and soil and landscape maintenance today to remember why this memorial exists and to be reminded that the ultimate goal of our work is to properly honor the memory and sacrifice of these 40 passengers and crew members of Flight 93, who tragically lost their lives on September 11th, 2001. From the earliest design concepts, the memorial groves in LA have been central to the memorial's purpose, ensuring their long-term sustainability so they can fulfill their role in commemorating these 40 individuals is a priority for the National Park Service and our partners. Before I talk in detail about our recent and ongoing work, I'd like to start with some background about the creation of Flight 93 National Memorial. Almost immediately after the tragic events of September 11th, 2001, there was a movement to create a permanent memorial at the crash site of Flight 93. In September 2002, the Flight 93 National Memorial Act formally authorized the memorial's creation and established the Flight 93 Advisory Commission, a body charged with making recommendations to Congress on the design and construction of the memorial. The commission included the director of the National Park Service and 14 other members who were recommended by family members of Flight 93's passengers and crew members, as well as local residents and first responders. Under its authority delegated by Congress, the Flight 93 Advisory Commission held an open international design competition, and in September 2005, the winning design was chosen from more than 1,000 competition entries. The winning design team was led by Paul Murdoch Architects and Nelson Bird Woltz Landscape Architects. After several years of design development, the memorial was constructed between 2009 and 2018. Here is a diagrammatic map of Flight 93 National Memorial today. The memorial boundary encompasses more than 1,500 acres, including the site where Flight 93 crashed, which you see here represented as a red dot near the right side of the image, and the surrounding context of fields, woods, and wetlands that bear the signs of the strip mining and other land uses that took place on this site during the 20th century. Within that landscape context, the National Park Service has constructed a series of buildings, roads, trails, and commemorative features that compose the design memorial landscape. These features include the memorial groves and allée, which you can see here colored in green, running in an arc along the edge of the Field of Honor, which is colored in orange, directly north of the Flight 93 crash site. It's very important to recognize that at Flight 93 National Memorial, the landscape is the memorial. The designers made very clear from the beginning that the ecological restoration of the reclaimed coal strip mine, where the memorial sits today, is a central purpose of the memorial, and that the healing of this land is intended to complement the nation's emotional healing following the tragedy of September 11th. The memorial groves and allée, as extensive plantings of nearly 2,000 native deciduous trees, are intended to be one of the most significant embodiments of the landscape's ecological healing. Their large scale is intended to complement the broad Field of Honor and to evoke the heroic nature of the sacrifice made by Flight 93's passengers and crew members. Additionally, the number of distinct memorial groves, 40 groves in total, correlates to the 40 passengers and crew members of Flight 93. These conceptual drawings from the winning design submission demonstrate the designer's overall intention for the memorial groves and allée, wrapping around the edge of the Field of Honor and sheltering visitors as they walk along the allée trail, which leads from the visitor center to the memorial plaza adjacent to the crash site. The 40 memorial groves were planted in 2 phases during the summer of 2012 and the summer of 2013. Here is a photo showing some of the groves near the visitor center soon after planting, likely around 2014 when the memorial was still under construction. The 316 red maple trees of the allée were planted in 2016. This is a photo from around 2017 showing a group of visitors walking along the allée trail flanked by newly planted red maple trees. Overall, between 2012 and 2016, approximately 2,000 trees were planted within the memorial groves and allée along the edge of the Field of Honor. Here is a diagram showing the groves and allée as they appeared after planting, with each dot representing a tree and different colors indicating different tree species. You'll also note that each memorial grove is assigned a number, with grove number 1 next to the visitor center near the bottom left corner of this image, and grove number 40 near the top right corner of the image. The memorial groves were planted with a variety of native deciduous tree species, including red maple, sugar maple, and several different oak species. the allée was planted entirely with red maple, and specifically the red sunset cultivar of red maple. This diagram is really important because it illustrates the scale and complexity of the planting of the memorial groves in LA. However, very soon after that initial planting, the park started to see signs that something was going wrong. Many trees in the memorial groves in LA started to demonstrate symptoms of premature decline in mortality. Here are photos of trees in the memorial groves taken in 2019. And here are trees in the allée in 2022 that were almost completely defoliated at the time. Recognizing that conditions were deteriorating and that intervention was needed, the park began assembling a team of partners to assess the problem and to identify potential solutions. To date, that team has included the Olmsted Center, as well as the Friends of Flight 93, Pennsylvania State University, the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, and the State University of New York College of Environmental Science and Forestry, along with Cornell University and the Memorial Design Team, among others. These partnerships have been and will continue to be absolutely crucial to the efforts to revitalize the memorial groves in LA. And to put it very simply, we simply would not be able to do this work without our partners. Some of the early work of the team included undertaking comprehensive assessments to understand the conditions of trees in the memorial groves in LA. These figures come from a 2020 report completed by researchers from Cornell University's Urban Horticulture Institute that assigned a condition to each tree in the memorial groves. You can see from the pie chart on the right that only 25% of trees were in good condition at the time of the assessment, and that almost the same number were in poor condition, dead, or missing. The chart on the bottom of the screen shows that there is a strong correlation between certain tree species and their outcomes. For example, almost 1/3 of sugar maple trees were dead, while the vast majority of red maples were in good or moderate condition. In addition to the tree condition assessment, the report also included soil analysis and recommendations related to tree species alternatives and soil amendments. Other early activities included detailed reviews of project documentation from the design and construction of Flight 93 National Memorial to understand design intent and assess the factors that have contributed to the poor outcomes we've experienced at the memorial groves in LA. All of this work has fed into a treatment planning process for the cultural landscape of Flight 93 National Memorial. Cultural landscape treatment planning is a National Park Service methodology that produces recommendations to achieve certain goals for the protection and management of a cultural landscape. For the memorial groves in LA, cultural landscape treatment will prescribe specific actions to improve the condition of the memorial groves in LA and enhance their sustainability by addressing the underlying factors that have resulted in poor performance. These factors, which have been identified through condition assessments and documentation review, include the site's poor soil quality, the initial planting of tree species that were not well adapted to the site's harsh conditions, the lack of site irrigation, improper planting practices during initial installation, and the park's constrained maintenance capacity. Also, just at a broad level, it's important to recognize that the site of Flight 93 National Memorial is extremely challenging for growing trees, as it is a reclaimed coal strip mine with highly disturbed soils at a high elevation that's cold and windy in the winter and hot and dry in the summer. So these specific factors that we've identified that you see here on the screen have also just been exacerbated by the simple realities of the harsh environment of the site. As planning has advanced over the last few years, we've also undertaken work in the field to test potential treatment approaches and inform our efforts. In 2022, this work included the replanting of Memorial Grove number 40 with a selection of alternative tree species to test their suitability for inclusion in the future large-scale replanting of the groves. Here is a diagrammatic planting plan showing the configuration of species as they were planted within that demonstration grove. Over the last 2 years, we've closely observed the establishment of the trees in the demonstration grove to determine which species exhibit high adaptability to the site's conditions. For example, we found that swamp white oak and Kentucky coffee tree are 2 native tree species that were not included in that original planting, but that have shown strong performance and may be included in the future replanting of the groves. The demonstration grove has also allowed us to test soil amendment approaches that could be scaled up to larger areas of the memorial groves in LA. The soil amendments we performed in the demonstration grove in 2022 have directly informed the more extensive soil amendment work that was completed this past fall, which I'll discuss in more detail in just a moment. Thanks to those field efforts like the demonstration grove, as well as extensive documentary research and the expertise of our partners, over the last 5 years, we've developed a greater understanding of the factors that have negatively affected tree conditions in the memorial groves in LA. We're now in a position to begin acting on our findings and taking steps to revitalize the memorial groves in LA. A major step forward occurred last April when approximately 700 trees that were dead or declining were removed from the memorial groves in anticipation of future soil amendments and tree replanting. At the same time, arboricultural care was provided to the memorial groves trees that are in better condition and will likely be able to remain in place. These trees tend to be concentrated in the lower numbered groves closer to the visitor center. That work last spring set the stage for the first phase of soil amendments in the memorial groves in LA, which were completed last fall. These amendments were performed in 2 distinct areas, which you see here outlined in red. The soil amendment technique that was employed this past fall was developed by Cornell's Urban Horticulture Institute and is known very scientifically as the scoop and dump method. The technique entails the incorporation of new topsoil into pre-existing soil to a depth of 2 feet using a mechanical excavator. By incorporating new topsoil into pre-existing soil, the amendment method enhances soil fertility, alleviates compaction, and improves site drainage, which are all conditions that encourage healthy tree growth and longevity. In the project areas this past fall, the scoop and dump soil amendments were performed in continuous 10-foot wide corridors that connect multiple tree planting locations. Creating these continuous corridors of amended soil will provide the future replacement trees with plenty of space to develop vigorous root systems and will also facilitate drainage on site. And here are just a couple views of that lower project site at the end of the project, showing those continuous rows of amended soil that are ready for future tree plantings. So while the completion of last fall's soil work is absolutely a major milestone, it's just a very early step in a multiple phase effort that will take place over many years to ensure the revitalization and long-term sustainable maintenance of the memorial groves in LA. Looking ahead to important next steps in this effort, the long-term treatment plan for Flight 93 National Memorial, which will address the memorial groves in LA as well as other areas of the design landscape, will be finalized this year. Additionally, Penn State has been developing a tree operations and maintenance plan as a companion to the treatment plan that will provide guidelines for the long-term sustainable maintenance of the memorial groves in LA. That document will also be finalized this year. We're also working with the park to enhance staff capacity with a specific focus on the care of the memorial groves in LA. This fall, we're also planning on implementing the second phase of soil amendments, likely to focus specifically on a section of the LA. Also this year, we're working to advance the design of an irrigation system that will ensure that future replacement tree plantings have the irrigation they need to grow and remain healthy. And possibly as early as next spring, we will begin the first phase of tree replanting. So as you can see, we have a lot of work ahead of us, but we're all very optimistic that alongside our partners and with their expertise, we will be successful in this effort. I'd like to close with this picture I took last October in one of the memorial groves closer to the visitor center, where conditions have fared better. Our research has indicated that these groves have been more resilient because a bit more soil preparation was completed during the first phase of tree planting when these upper groves were planted. This photo with the trees in fall color shows the power of the design of the memorial groves to provide a contemplative, monumental space that honors the passengers and crew members of Flight 93. Our goal is to realize this defining feature of the memorial landscape as a source of healing and pride for future generations. And with that, I'll turn it back to Donna. Thank you.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Colleen and Kristina. Absolutely incredible information. So anyone have any questions that you want to put in the chat? We have our subject matter experts here with us. So if you're contemplating or the presentation prompted you to think of some questions, now's the time to get your answers.
Question in the Q&A about the size of trees for replanting. The type of nursery stock, I think, is the question about, what we would be using to replant the groves in the LA. So that is not finalized yet. There's obviously a lot of considerations when it comes to the type of nursery stock to install. We are leaning toward balled and burlap, so larger stock that would have an immediate visual impact, but very small caliper balled and burlap. So maybe 1.5-inch caliper at the most. Obviously, I think it's really important to stress that we're not going to put a single tree in the ground in the memorial groves in LA until we have a functioning irrigation system, which is really one of our major priorities right now. And we're moving forward with the design this year.
Yeah, and Greg, as far as the donations, so anyone who would like to contribute to this project can go to Friends of Flight 93, www.flight93friends.org, or if you want to get involved in fundraisers, whatever, just contact me and I'll be happy to work with you on that. So thank you, Greg. Then Adam Kurtz, is there a timeline for this long-term restoration? James, do you want to take that?
Sure. So yes, as you probably noticed in the presentation, I stressed several times long-term. One of the things we found in our research and study of the initial development of the memorial is that one of the things that went wrong is that it was rushed, that there were these sort of desire to get things built, get things in the ground, to meet different sorts of deadlines and to sort of just get the project done. So we are not going to make that same mistake. We are taking our time with this revitalization. And so in terms of seeing a fully sort of mature LA and Memorial Groves, we're working with a 40-year timeline. So really, obviously that won't mean that we're planting the last trees in 40 years, but that's sort of how long it takes to establish a landscape of this scale and this complexity. In terms of the actual replanting, that would take place over the next decade, maybe into the next 2 decades. So I think that's a really key and important part of our strategy, is to not feel rushed and to really make sure that we're taking our time and learning, there's such a large scale landscape, learning as we go as well. And like the demonstration grove, that grove number 40 that was replanted, is sort of a good example of that approach, that we started with one grove and watched it. And we've learned from it, and we're taking the lessons from that grove and moving forward with those lessons to the next phase.
Okay, so how can volunteers get involved? I would say volunteers can get involved by communicating, spreading the word about the project, soliciting people who may want to donate funds to the project. We hope at times we may be able to involve or engage volunteers with the actual plantings or mulching or helping with some of the maintenance. So many ways you can get involved with some of the fundraisers that we're doing to raise money for this project. So I'm going to send this one to Kristina. How is the maintenance and improvements being funded? I know, part of it is coming. The Friends have been doing some fundraisers. Part of our direct mail campaigns have been directed towards the revitalization of the memorial groves. But Kristina, do you want to talk about it from the park standpoint?
Sure, Donna. So as far as with I'm sorry about my camera there. So yes, as we're trying to work through how it would, the hope would be that eventually to actually handle in the grove, that we would be able to have or hire some type of forester to watch and help make sure everything's going as it should, and that we can have the best success possible. And then of course the typical maintenance, we have an awesome staff at Flight 93. So as always, they would be involved on their normal, it would be worked into their normal maintenance plan to go ahead and care for that as well as resource management. Colleen has a natural resource position on her team as well. So she would also be involved in overseeing anything. So it would be a lot of the group effort from the day to day from our awesome staff that we currently have on hand.
Excellent. So Francis asked, is this presentation going to be recorded? And yes, it is going to be recorded and will be available on the Friends YouTube station as well as on our website for a period of time. And then Kathy Smith asked what portion of the work is donated versus paid. Kathy, I know that the Friends have committed $100,000 a year over 10 years. And, if we're able to get more than that, so it's about a third is being donated for this project, and the other 2/3 is from the Park Service. Kristina, does that sound about accurate to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Judy asked, as the project is being worked on, will it prevent visitors from walking along the alley? I mean, I would say no. I don't know if anyone else feels differently about that. James, Colleen?
So generally, no. There may be like very short periods of time, like an afternoon, when there's active work going on, like this, as I mentioned, this fall, we're hoping to implement soil amendments right along the alley. So during like maybe very short windows when there's active work going on where it's not safe, there might be some limitations, but the park will absolutely work to make sure that there's alternate routes and that visitor access is not disrupted unnecessarily. But in terms of like long-term access, that wouldn't be part of a result of the project.
In the park would absolutely, we would have that on our official park webpage. If there would be any type of interruption there, we would have that on there to let visitors know, but it should be very little impact to the visitor.
Is To Greg Keeling, I want to say, as Diora's friend and being out in San Diego, thank you all for keeping the memorial safe and taken care of. I'll keep you posted on my fundraising efforts for the Resiliency Project, and you'll see us again in December. Thank you, Greg. We appreciate you so much. Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, so thank you very much for joining us this evening. We appreciate your participation and interest in this important work. As we have learned this evening, the resilience of our National Memorial depends on our collective efforts. I encourage each of you to consider being part of the solution. One way to contribute is by supporting the rehabilitation of the memorial groves. Donations can be made, as you can see on the screen, to www.flight93friends.org. We actually have a whole page dedicated to the Resiliency Project. Every contribution, no matter the size, helps ensure these treasured landscapes are preserved for future generations. Thank you once again for being here, and let's continue to work together to protect and enhance our national memorial. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening.